I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by three fantastic ambassadors for the assistant industry who I'm going to let introduce themselves. So Melissa, why don't we start with you?
Hello, everyone. My name is Melissa Peoples. You guys might know me from my YouTube channel, Admin Gurus. So I'm from Austin, Texas. I'm an executive assistant coach like you, been in the industry for a really long time. Switched over to be an EA coach. So I'm so excited to get to talk with these amazing ladies about all the fabulous and exciting things that are happening in our industry. And I'm so excited to chat with you. So please make sure you stay connected in the chat because we'll all be in there.
And Candice?
Hello, everybody. Coming at you even from Sydney, Australia, where it's 7 a.m. here. So if you're in the APAC time zone, I'll be chatting to you. But so my background is I was career EA for many, many years, more than I would like to admit. And now I am the founder of Admin Avenues, which is a global community platform for assistants. I'm also the director of the Admin Collective, which is a membership group for admins around the world as well. So super happy to be here, and I hope this is a great session for you all.
And Lily.
Hi everyone, I'm Lily and I am the Managing Director of Lily Shippen. Lily Shippen is a boutique recruitment agency. We're based in the UK and we solely focus on business support recruitment across all industries, which I think gives us a really good grasp of actually what's happening across the assistant profession, not just in one particular industry. And personally, I have recruited EAs and business support professionals for over 10 years now. And I love the profession and I love educating businesses, business owners, as many people as who will listen about the value of the role. So thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure having all three of you. I think we are going to have a fantastic discussion. We've got about half an hour, 40 minutes to really get into what 2024 is going to look like for the assistant industry. So Melissa, why don't we start with you? You're in the States. Why don't you let us know a little bit about the trends that you're seeing in the States, some of the potential skills that assistants need and how the role might evolve over the year?
Yeah, so we're just, it's kind of interesting because I'm sort of seeing like this big gamut. So we're seeing a lot of roles that are shifting towards executive operations, executive business partner. There's lots of conversations still going on about the change of title in our role that's still happening here in the US, and I'm sure across the globe as well. But we're also seeing a couple of things in my mind are a little bit scary, which we're seeing a shift towards like pool assistants and sort of going over to a ridiculous number of executives. One, two, we're also seeing sort of this surgence of a bunch of assistants not necessarily being connected to an executive business partner, almost kind of going to like a secretary pool back in the day, which is a little bit concerning. But I think that overall we are seeing a massive shift. I think the biggest one being that there's so much empowerment happening. We're seeing a lot of assistants really kind of leveling up, finding their voice and really standing up and demanding change, which for me is really exciting.
Candice, you're nodding away.
Oh, well, that's the first bit scares me, Melissa. We do not need to go back. We need to go forward. But I also agree with like the fact that in Australia, I'm finding over the last 3 years, probably there's really become a surgence of admins being like, no, actually, we really are important. We are two ICs to CEOs and our roles matter, our opinions matter. And we basically, run these companies on side with our execs in the team. So it's really good seeing that. And we've had, obviously, Admin Avenues pop up. We've had the AAAs pop up. And we also have AOP, which is the Australian Institute of Office Professionals in Australia, that's been around for 60 years. So it's really good to see that there's three big prominent groups in Australia that are pushing the profession forward. But I'd say the evolving kind of trends in Australia is lingering on from 2023 is your increased technology integrations and strategic involvement. I think the admins are becoming a lot more tech savvy. They're a lot more interested in it now that people like Jessica McBride have made it less scary by making like actual guides for admins. But I'd say unique to Australia, I'd say there's a trend towards sustainability and Indigenous inclusion. which is a big thing here. I think reflecting the country's focus on environmental and cultural diversity is a big thing. And yeah, so I just hope that we continue to lead these practices and honour these values within our organisations going forward.
And Lily, to bring you in the UK?
Yeah, so I think touching on what you said, Melissa, I definitely agree around the more titles coming through. I've definitely noticed that. I think that the role, what's clear to me over the last, well, it's constantly evolving, but I think the role has evolved. I think what I'm seeing more of is actually businesses understanding this, which, you know, we've been wanting more of. And obviously there are, you know, I'm not saying every business, but I've definitely noticed more businesses really, you know, coming to us and actually saying, I want a strategic EA, I want, you know, a chief of staff, for example, and actually understanding what that means. Whereas 18 months ago, 12 months ago, it was actually, I know I need help, but I don't really know what I need. So I would say that, you know, the role has evolved, and I think more people, you know, we're all talking about it. Perhaps that's, you know, businesses are kind of are understanding that, and I think a lot of businesses will actually look to redefine their business support functions as well. We've seen more of that. So I would say those are the two things that I've noticed, or three things, sorry, that I've noticed in the UK that I think will continue to do so throughout 2024.
There's so much we can cover because, as you said, all of you have said, the role has evolved, continues to evolve, and the people coming into the profession now seem very different to where we were a few years ago. So there's a lot to cover, but I think the first place we've got to start is technology. I feel like 2023, obviously with ChatGPT, a huge explosion in terms of AI, and moving the conversation forward from AI is going to replace the job of assistants to a much more deeper level of conversation. So Melissa, coming back to you, can you talk to us a little bit about how you found it over the last kind of, I would say a year now, probably slightly less, 10 months, in terms of the AI conversation?
Yeah, to me, it's one of the most exciting conversations that we can have. If you had to ask me what was the biggest shift in our industry, 100% I would say AI. And I think it's because, you know, for years I've been sort of waving the flag that says use technology to increase your bandwidth so that you can lean into the areas of the business that you find exciting, and whatever that is for you, whatever niche you find really empowering. When you are finding assistants that are just drowning in the amount of work, you have to look to tech to sort of open that up for you so that you have more space. And I would say the thing that I think is really interesting is there's a lot of technology that's out there. What I always hear is I'm either overwhelmed, I don't know where to begin, just concerned, just overall my organization won't let me use it, or what am I allowed to use, or whatever. So I think that there's still a lot of conversation. And at some point, I'd like to see the industry get over that hump and get more into like embracing it, figuring out how they specifically can utilize it. Because I don't know about you guys, but I am still hearing, well, I don't know where I should begin or what I should start with. And I think there's so many of us out there kind of going, you know, maybe try this, but at some point you have to go from wondering to actually implementation so that you can master it and move on, because it's just coming at the speed of light. I would definitely say, you know, I'm still doing the AI in action sessions, and I just still have a lot of assistants coming in, and many are still don't even know about ChatGPT in real life. So to me, that's a little bit concerning, going, we have to kind of get on the other side of curiosity to implementation. But I would say, if you think about the main gaps that you're having, really leaning into those and finding an AI tool that's going to help you go faster and starting there. It's really, I mean, if you think about the foundational four, so calendar, inbox, travel, expenses, there really is AI right now that could replace every single one of those. And if you're doing it at a very basic level, I think it's really problematic going forward on what your career trajectory could look like, versus if you engage it, you embrace it, and then you learn that next level around the basics and really dive into strategic calendar planning or really extensive travel, not just sort of the travel planning, but all of the ins and outs of that. So I think it's moving at the speed of light, and at some point we have to catch up to it.
And on the training that you do, Melissa, just in terms of a percentage, how many people would you say get it, embrace it, love it? And then what's the percentage more towards the concern, I don't know where to start group?
I was just recently at a conference, and I probably had about 1,000 people in the room in both of my sessions. And I would probably say maybe 10% had actively used even ChatGPT. So yeah, like to me, it is really mind blowing. But again, I think it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier is we have so many assistants who are drowning, and they've got 9. I met this one assistant really recently who had 16 executives, 16, like that's insanity. So they're drowning in the work, and then they're seeing something like, AI and automation and how do I implement it? And they just honestly can't even wrap their head around it because they're drowning in the work. So yeah, I think it can be really problematic. We think because we all do it so much that everybody knows it and it's all in, but I don't think that's actually the case.
Yeah, that's so interesting. From a hiring point of view, Lily, where is this conversation going from the conversations you've had?
I mean, interestingly, I wouldn't necessarily say it's something that has come up so much in the hiring process. Similar to you, Melissa, though, I did a presentation not so long ago about AI, and actually similar to the audience that I presented to, a lot of them hadn't also heard of it or tried it. In terms of from a hiring side of things, it's more the conversation is around wanting someone who is tech savvy. AI, I wouldn't say is necessarily isn't something that comes up in a brief as much at the moment. But I think also that's probably because companies are still kind of looking at it themselves as well. But I think definitely someone that is more tech savvy that can look at those things for them. So a lot of business owners don't have the time necessarily to actually really look into AI themselves. So finding an assistant that is tech savvy, that might not know the answers, but can go away and investigate and look at how they can apply things to their business, I think is more of a requirement than actually need someone that understands AI right now.
Like an openness to it.
Absolutely.
And Candice, to bring you in, any extra thoughts?
I just agree, but also I think, it's the responsibility of people who are kind of thought leaders in this profession to drive home the messaging that AI is going to further streamline admin tasks. Like it's assisting in predictive analysis, it's enhancing in decision making, and it's going to help, like automation is going to transform routine processes. And I think the more we get the message out that this tech wave will enable admins to focus more on strategic and high value tasks, which will in turn elevate their roles within their organizations. And I think changing the messaging around how this is going to improve your role, and also how it's going to elevate how you're seen as an admin, also elevating your salary in showing how, you can now focus on the more strategic roles and things like that. I think there needs to be more of a conversation around that and understanding that than just this scary, AI's over here, and if you don't know about it, it's a threat. It's like, no, this is so good for us. Let's keep talking about it. Let's keep pushing it forward.
It's such a catch-22, isn't it? And I completely understand it, but it's if you're drowning in work, goodness me, ChatGPT or any other AI tool that's available is going to help you. But finding the time to dedicate to the learning process, it's a frustration in a sense, because you need a week, you need a couple of days. If you are open to technology and you are good at understanding how technology works, a couple of days and you are you're firing on all cylinders with it. But for assistants, like you said, Melissa, who have potentially 16 executives and they're drowning in work, a couple of days is a luxury they can't afford. So what's the next steps? And come back to you, Melissa. What do you think the next steps are for assistants that are worrying that they're going to get left behind with the AI revolution?
So I think for me, it's a really interesting concept that trying to push assistants to consider their career outside of their current role. And I think that when you take ownership of your career, And when I ask assistants, like, do you have a personal productivity plan? You know, have you ever worked through your own workflow? Have you been the assistant for yourself to understand where your gaps are? If you want to do executive operations, can you do it for yourself? And I find a lot of assistants are still struggling in that piece. So what ends up happening in my mind is they're spinning their wheels going, oh, I need to learn this new thing, versus going, at the end of 2024, I'm going to be better at these 4 things. I'm going to reverse engineer that and hit this once a quarter. And then this is what that's going to look like. That to me is a productive way to look at AI, and saying, rather than just feeling the intensity of the pressure, going, okay, I recognize it's something that I need to shift, but also here's my plan for my career path, not for my current job. And I think that that's one thing that we miss often, is we kind of go, here's my goals for my company, and this is what they want me to do, but where are you in your career, and where do you want to go in 1, 3, 5 years? And do you have a plan to get you there? And if AI and productivity or automation is not in that, I think you have to take that step and own your career, be intentional with what you don't know, and then close those gaps really intentionally, so you can eventually get right to where you need to go.
Yeah, that's fantastic advice. There's a lot we can talk about around technology. I'd like to move on to more broader skills, but just if there are any other points you guys want to cover around AI, then jump in.
I mean, I was just going to say that I would love to see the businesses that have got internal PA networks. I would love to see those internal networks actually focusing on AI and actually sharing learnings. And if there aren't internal networks where, you know, I speak to so many EAs, PAs who are the only one within their business, I would love to see see those people sharing knowledge with other assistants, because I think that it is so hard when you're so busy and you're so in it, to actually take a step back and look at how you can use ChatGPT for example. But actually, when you do get an idea from someone, it's so easy to go and implement it if you have, you had a look at the system, for example. But sometimes it's actually just being prompted to think about it and remember that it's there. I think that, we're all so busy and so kind of used to doing things in our way, that actually, someone just saying, have you thought about doing it this way? Or, I'd love to see more of that personally. I'm sure it's happening already, but there are some great internal networks that are out there, and AI is there to strengthen the roles, as we say.
Yeah. And I'd just say, if you're one of those people that are solo or don't sit with your team, or aren't with the admins, do a shameless plug here for you, Nikki. But if you are part of the EA campus, I mean, it's such a great community, and you can just tap in and you can just be like, ask a question about this, or does anyone know this, or has anyone used this? Like, to have that community already there, people from all different time zones, different opinions, different type of corporations, you can just ask a question and get a whole bunch of free feedback. This is one of the powerful parts of being part of these admin communities.
Yeah, I second that. I think one of the things that a lot of assistants struggle with is asking for help, because we're so geared towards having all of the answers. Again, ChatGPT will help with that. You don't need to go to anybody else. You can ask ChatGPT. But now is the time to ask for help, because you said so many assistants are using it and coming up with prompts and ways of making their work more efficient. So if you don't know, ask for some help. And I know people will be super proud to show you what they do, because it's such a new tool, and the people that are using it are enjoying using it and probably more than happy to share the knowledge. So yeah, that's such a great point, Lily, that you made there. I really would like to move on to kind of some broader skills, and I'd like to come back to Candice and Lily. I know that you both have a recruitment arm to what you do. So can I ask you both what skills and qualifications seem in demand and may potentially be more so in 2024? Candice, why don't we start with you?
I'd say from a hiring perspective this year, I think the most in-demand skills and qualifications are obviously going to be like including advanced proficiency in digital tools and platforms. I'd say data analytics has definitely come into the mix, at least the capabilities with it. Strong communication skills, especially in virtual settings. But I'd also say, like, think about adaptability and EQ, emotional intelligence. I think they're going to be the crucial hiring kind of what's the word, things that people are looking at. These like skills facilitate effective collaboration, and especially in like changing working environments. And I think Australia is really going through a shift at the moment where we're really not, we didn't hold on to the hybrid working. They're very much like, we want you back in the office, which is really a shame. Like everyone else got on in the world, but Australia's like, no, you must come back to the office. They're now just slowly starting to be like, oh, maybe a 2 days at home isn't bad. So I think showing that you can work in these virtual settings is going to help. So long-winded answer, short is I'd say technical know-how combined with interpersonal skills will be key, especially during like your interview process, like showing that you have these kind of skills and adaptability.
Lily?
Yeah, I would agree entirely. I would say emotional intelligence, good strong communication skills, the ability to take complex information and to essentially communicate that simply. I think that's absolutely in demand. I mean, we've already talked about the technology side. I think not just AI, but the collaboration tools. I think those are really useful skills. And we are seeing more businesses actually test on those skills as well, which, had gone away for quite a long time. And it's definitely come back. And I think psychometric testing plays a part in that because, you can't get emotional intelligence and communication skills from a CV. So that's coming back into processes, which to me says that it is absolutely that. It's emotional intelligence, it's communication, and the soft skills, if anything. We have seen quite a few more Prince 2 qualifications, which hadn't seen for quite some time. And I wouldn't say that they're necessarily asked for a lot of the time from a hiring perspective. But then again, if you are up against someone else that doesn't have that, it can, obviously edge you if you are, it's between you and one other. So yeah, I would agree definitely with Candice.
Has there been much movement around having a degree or not having a degree or some kind of college education?
There's just some clients that are just always hung up on that and you just want to shake them. But yes, there are still those ones that want a degree, a red brick university, for example. And, we will always try and push back because they just narrow that pool so much. And actually, it's kind of redundant. But yeah, there are still those ones, but I wouldn't say that that's, I'd still say that they're kind of in the minority. And I think that it's very much about relevant industry and role experience. But there's just a few that get hung up on the education. Yeah.
And Melissa, from a more training perspective, what are some of the skills that the assistants in your community are asking you to teach them? What are some of the things that are in demand from their point of view?
Well, I lean really heavy into executive ops anyway. And I think a lot of the people that join my group tend to kind of lean that way. And it's kind of interesting for me because I think the more that I'm still talking with executives across industries, it's the basics that they're still looking for. It doesn't matter what size organization that you're in. Executives are really looking for somebody to streamline their work. And I think that's still going to be the conversation between the COS role and, a high performing EA or executive operations. I think that there's still this massive gap where the executive is the deliverable and teaching assistants what that actually looks like. Have you done a calendar audit? Do you know where they're spending their time? And from that, can you then reverse engineer their calendar, really kind of getting ahead? I'm, this is probably slightly controversial, but I am not an advocate of chaos coordination. I think that we do ourselves a disservice. I often say if I came in as a CEO to any company and I was like, I'm a chaos coordinator, that would make me a horrible CEO. And I probably wouldn't stay there for very long. So I think for a lot of the assistants that are coming into my group, they're really looking for how do I streamline executive operations? What does that look like? How do I facilitate and run really good meetings? What does strategic calendar planning actually look like? How do I do a calendar audit? I think these are the things that executives are looking for. because they still need somebody to project manage them as the deliverable. And that's probably one of the biggest piece that I see missing for assistants.
Yeah. I'm just processing everything you just said there. Yes, everything there is exactly right. Candice, just to bring you back in, you mentioned there about Australia is massively moving towards a hybrid or remote environment. So what's happening with all of the assistants going back into the office?
It's 2019. We're rocking it like it's 2019. Like it's just kind of, it's frustrating because it's just like the whole world moved forward. We proved the model that it could work this way. Everybody else is doing it, but there's just this, we want you back in the office. We want you back in the office. And it's a real issue with hiring because people are flat out not clicking. Like I can see the analytics of what jobs are being clicked on our job board. If it doesn't have remote or hybrid, it's not getting clicked. And it's just like, there was an incident last year where a very well-known entrepreneur made a very damaging statement where he went out at a Forbes event and basically said that workers need to be grateful that they have jobs, and we need to go through essentially like a depression or a high unemployment rate to recalibrate on how we are the workers and we should be grateful. And I was just like, oh, dude, it was the worst PR thing ever. But it did start a conversation around like, actually, if you want employers or you want good employers, like employees, you're the ones that are going to have to change now because they have the power. They can absolutely take on freelancing work now. There's more virtual assistants than I've ever seen in my entire life, and they're full. They are full because there's so many more small businesses that need just a virtual assistant to be by their side or a couple hours or whatever else. Like the world changed outside of corporate. Yes, corporate, you can choose your structure and this is the way it works. But the rest of the world, all these startups, all these new funds, all these places need admins, and they're stealing this good talent from the big corporates, from the big four. Like, unless you're going to make it worthy of their time to stay with these kind of professions, you got to keep up. And also, we're moving. We go to London. We go to America. We lose our best talent because money and opportunity.
And Melissa, to come back to you in the States, where are you guys with hybrid working, coming back to the office? Because I saw recently that a similar thing happened, I think just yesterday with, I think WebMD's parent company. A thing went out across social media where they were demanding people come back to the office, and it's gone down like an absolute lead balloon. So I don't think it's just Australia. So,
yeah,
Melissa.
I think we're seeing that here in the US quite a bit too. And I think one of the interesting parts for me is that, earlier on we said that we're hearing assistants finding their voice much more. And one of the things that I'm personally seeing is we're seeing assistants being asked to come back to the office at a different rate than we are the rest of the team. And we're seeing a lot of pushback and a lot of really hard conversations that says, well, that's clearly telling me that you don't see me as a colleague and as a part of the team. And why? Because we're still being asked to do office work, right? They want me to come in the office so I can get the mail, or I can get you your food, or I can order and put the supplies away and all of that. And I think that at least what I'm seeing is a real pushback on some of those traditional responsibilities, and sort of saying, like, I'm not the office mom. I ask this question wherever I go, and every conference I go to is, do you like to be the office mom? I've had 3 women raise their hand out of thousands. But generally, this is the pushback. And I think years ago, we didn't feel comfortable pushing back, and now we do. So when we hear that come back into the office, 5 days a week, where everybody else has the option to come back 2 or 3, we're seeing a huge pushback and some really hard conversations. But to me, it's really exciting that our assistants are feeling empowered enough to say no.
Yeah, and then hope, if it starts with that conversation, it's going to lead to so many more conversations, because that's a hard one to have. Yeah. But there are so many more to have. So if you aren't happy with your work situation, start there, because you've got a lot of data, a lot of information going back to the pandemic that you can do your job from home, or you can just come in a few days a week into the office. You've got a lot of data to back up your argument. So yeah, I think that's a really good conversation, a starting point in terms of difficult conversations to have. Lily, to bring you in, what from your point of view, how are those conversations going down in the UK?
I would probably say it's a little bit more positive in the UK. I'd say that there is definitely some difference in what companies are looking for and what assistants want. I think that what we find is that most businesses have increased their office days, so they are trying to get people back. However, what I would say is that most of the roles that we do work on are 3 days in the office, 2 at home. 4 days can sometimes work in the office and 1 at home. Again, the degree, there are still those companies out there that do want 5 days a week, and we will say to them, you are looking in such a small candidate pool. But I would say that they are very much in the minority still. I think that assistants are pushing back, and it's been great actually being part of the negotiation process with them. Recently we have had quite a few people push back and absolutely get what they want. We've and it's great to see those conversations being had to start off with. I think the companies are definitely still trying to kind of move the goalposts around, I would say, but I think we've definitely noticed people kind of staying strong on that. But generally I'd say the 3 days in the office, 2 at home is still working. Hopefully that will continue. Who knows? Hopefully we won't be going back to 2019 as well.
I don't think the tubes could handle it.
No. I tell you what though, tubes on a Thursday, you just know that everyone is going out for a drink after work. Yeah. It's like back to that. Packed on a Thursday, dead on a Monday. But I'd say it's more positive.
Yeah, and I would just say also a quick tip is get it in writing. Like you might have a conversation about it and they may, say, oh yeah, I'm sure we can work with that. Get that put in writing.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I was just going to say, I wonder if the conversations that you're having and assistants are having now around remote working is on the same level as salary. Is it as important now that there is a remote work point as well as a good salary? Are they kind of, equal in the conversation around remuneration now?
I'm hearing yes.
Yeah. I think the cost of living, I think that people aren't taking a drop. People want, just as much, if not more. I think that working from home is a given. It's not a either or, I would say. We've seen salaries increase, I think they needed to, definitely in the regions. I think we cover a lot of roles in Manchester, and they were so far behind the salaries in London for years. Like we didn't have an EA role past 35k pre-COVID. Like we just never got them on. We've now got 50, 60k roles on. So there is definitely an uplift. But I would say it's not an either or.
I mean, the world has just become so expensive. There's so many things going on that is making life more expensive. But I think also people had a taste of what it could be, and life balance, and mums being able to pick up their kids and not having to spend a certain chunk of money on daycare or, after school care or things like that. Like I do hate to put it in here, but I have to acknowledge it, is that it really is a women's problem. These are the things that are constantly pushing women down, is not having that flexibility for them to be able to do the mum duties, for them to be able to, be able to get dinner on and then they can log on. Like it's just, I hate that it is still this way, but it is. We can't just be like, we've moved on. It hasn't. So.
No, and for assistants, we're at the forefront of that because it's 98% female driven industry. So we're absolutely at the forefront of the things that every other woman who works in business has to deal with. Those things are so important. And I'm so pleased what you said there, Melissa, and what you've all said in terms of it's more positive that assistants are pushing back. We are so here for it, and it really is the time for it. So I'm so pleased to hear that. I'd like to move on just around the role itself. Melissa, to come to you, I wonder if you think there are any changes in the role itself that you think might open up for assistants this year, any changes in scope or responsibilities?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we're so far removed from when I started, 20 years ago, a long time ago. I do think, so I think that there's been this emergence of a new role. And I think it is a version between a high performing EA and a chief of staff. And I like to call it executive ops, right? Again, where I was going back to where the executive is the deliverable, and it's so high performing, and they're doing what a lot of COS, because my experience has been there's two paths to the COS role. There's the executives that are trying to use it as a stepping stool. The problem is they generally need someone to do administrative or business support functions for them. They don't know how to do it. And then there is an EA and then now there's still this gap. And so I do think that there is this emergence of executive operations role that the scope is so much different than the foundational four. And I think that the more that we're seeing executives understand the value of that and kind of going, I still need somebody to project manage me. Here's what I need. I always like to say, if we can get assistants to focus on curating content for their executives in a way that they will engage with, the business runs so much faster. And nobody's doing that. Well, I shouldn't say nobody, but there is this massive gap. And I think we are seeing a lot of assistants step into that role. I'm a big proponent. I'm sure we could have a whole different discussion on COS titles and all of that. But I'm a big proponent of not just automatically moving an assistant into a COS title because it's so traditionally male dominated. And I think that assistants can still do the high functioning role and still get paid the money and still get to do the work still while owning the calendar. So yes, I do think that there is a massive scope. I think meeting facilitation, meeting management, like prepping, basically getting your executives ready and prepared for their week and delivering what they need to deliver to move the business forward, I think is not just a COS role. I think it falls squarely into our house. And we have to sort of take that back in a really aggressive, spicy way. I think it's important that we talk about it, because I do think what we're seeing in the opposite, like I mentioned earlier, is we are seeing when we don't do that, we're seeing this like assistant pool thing happening, which to me is very scary. And we're seeing a lot of big organizations do that. And that is really going backwards. And I think that we have to push really hard against that and really push towards the evolving of the role in this new scope.
It's such an interesting point, because I've definitely seen conversations around big organizations setting up assistant departments. And I think it sounds fantastic, because I get all of the ideas around, then you have structure, then you have a set of criteria that assistants can work towards as a department. They're not left out of budget. I get all of that. But my concern is exactly what you've said, Melissa, is that organizations will go, well, we'll just go back to the pools that we had. Yeah. And then we're back to secretarial pools, which does nobody any good. So I think it's an interesting topic that is really going to dominate, LinkedIn mostly for this year, because I'm worried about that backslide as well.
To be fair, there absolutely are organizations who do already have this in place. It's not theory, like we're seeing it actually happen. And that to me is, I wish it was just theory.
Yeah.
No, I do know of a big media corporation that has a pool of assistants that are kind of on standby, where if they aren't like given to someone to use for leave cover or whatever, then they do like on-flow admin and things like that. Like they're constantly used, but the kind of point of having them is that if like a president's EA goes away, they're not having a random temp come in. They've got someone that knows exactly how to do the systems. They know who everyone is in the company. They know how to do the expenses. They know like how to run meetings and the tech and everything like that. But it is a scary kind of thing, as you said, Melissa, where it's kind of like, that sounds like a secretary's pool. I don't quite like that. But at the same time, it's really beneficial to have pre-trained people to be able to cover you on leave. So I think as long as we can keep pushing that we're not secretaries and we're not doing that anymore, and we're definitely moving towards the shift towards more strategic functions such as project management, decision support and things like that, then I think the evolution will reflect the words, ongoing digital transformations and the change in dynamics in the 2024 workplace. So as long as we just keep pushing this way and away from secretary, and I'm going to say I always get in trouble for this, but it's how I feel, is that I feel that the word assistant needs to be moved out of the title going forward. I feel that is your assisting is seen as doing and not and not adding value with it. It's secretarial. It's getting you a cup of coffee. It's fixing this. It's that. It's not strategic. And I think going forward, not only just for us, but also for people to entice people to come into this profession, we need to lose the word assistant. And I did a poll on this on LinkedIn at the end of last year, and I think 79% of 400 people said that they wanted to be called an executive business partner. And I think that is because Google did it. So I think that was the first big ta-da title when we came out off the word executive assistant. I think there definitely needs to be a shift in the title change as well to be able to push the mentality of what this role is and the money that it deserves.
Yeah, especially for other people.
Sorry, Melissa, go on.
Oh, no, I was just saying I think especially for other people, it's other people when they see our title that they really struggle with it. And I think it goes back to the whole office mom thing. And I think if we don't want to be seen as the office mom, one, we have to stop behaving like the office mom. And if we don't want people to look at us that way, then part of that is questioning, how are you feeding that same narrative? And are you pushing back on people when they're behaving that way or setting those expectations? I know of one assistant recently who had it escalated all the way up to the president because she didn't pick up a coffee mug that somebody else left in there for 3 days. And it went up to the president of the company. I mean, like, this is, and I think it is, I think, like we've all talked about, it's still a DEI issue for women. And I think it's really important that we not stop talking about it. The fact that we're still expected to do these things. We have the term assistant in our title. People see it that way. They expect us to do the housework of the office. And we're often women supporting men. And I think it's important that we still continue to keep speaking about it until it changes.
I would say as well that I think that it's absolutely what you just said, like it's about speaking about it, but I also think it's the executive team and how they treat their assistants, their admin professionals, because I think that I completely agree with you that the pools, it's scary, and I think that there's so much more value than putting those in place. However, I do think that if they're working in a business where the exec team really value those assistants and they're treated properly, and I think it's all about language within that business. I think that it's great to see, like, we're working with quite a lot of execs at the moment who've joined businesses, and they've obviously worked with incredible EAs, and they've come in, they've been like, right, we're looking at this to start off with, we're redefining the executive assistant team or structure, and those are the execs that you want in those businesses, because then they talk to each other in different businesses and the word gets out. It's the presidents that are talking about their coffees and things like that. We don't want those conversations happening about their assistants. And I think it goes, it's just as important at the leadership, the senior leadership level, just as much as assistants, that and how do we get that conversation going? I know that's really difficult, but it is great to see these execs coming and actually talking to us and saying, I've spoken to so-and-so and, this is what I need, rather than us telling them what they need.
Yeah. So true.
Yeah.
I think as well, it's worth saying that, we have a lot of conversations around assistants, if they don't embrace technology, if they don't move with the times, then they're going to get left behind. But we don't often have those conversations about executives who aren't embracing assistants, or in the weeds, and not like checking their emails or doing their own all of the stuff they shouldn't be doing, rather than actually focusing on the business. We don't often flip the conversation and say those executives aren't going to be around for very much longer, because businesses are moving so fast that those executives who demand coffee and still use a paper diary, those types, they're not going to be around for a huge amount longer. So this conversation is going to shift as well, because we're getting new executives in who get it. They need to get it. So I think it's an empowering conversation to have for assistants.
Yeah, I think for me, it's a really interesting piece because I've also seen a lot of younger assistant or a lot of younger executives also have a really challenging mindset if they've never, because I think at the end of the day, if you've never seen a powerful partnership, if you've never partnered with somebody like Candice, or Nikki, then you don't know what they can do for you. And so you're just guessing and assuming, and you don't know. So you just sort of give them fluff work. And then, I think one of the other big challenges is we see executives are just parsing assistants out as a perk, like, oh, you got a director level, let me give you an assistant. Meanwhile, they're drowning and they've got 16 people that they're supporting. So exactly to Lily's point, I think that we have to have the conversations with the executives. One of my favorite things to do is do 2-on-1 coaching, and getting to talk to the executive assistant and the executive at the same time and really bring up some of these topics. Because to Lily's point, I think we have to bring it up with the executives, and we have to say, the other thing I would really encourage people to do is, I know this is really hard, but this is a DEI issue, and I will say this till I'm blue in the face, and talk with your HR departments when you see things that are inconsistent with DEI policies within your organization. That if we all are silent because we're afraid of the pushback, nothing ever changes. And I do think that we have to sort of bring this up and say, I'm really uncomfortable bringing your coffee, or I'm uncomfortable serving you your food, especially when I was told to be quiet, or, just shut up and take the notes in this last meeting. So I do think it's important for us to stand up and have those uncomfortable conversations in all forms. So whether it be with the executive or with HR or with your team or whatever that looks like, but doing whatever you can. I always like to say, don't let silence be a default.
And I think setting boundaries early with if you're having a new executive, because I had to have a conversation with she was British, but she'd been living in the US, in New York for a long time. And when she came back, what she thought my services as an executive assistant were very different to what I was willing to do. And their head office was in New York. So their EA could click their fingers and, people came running, and it was just like, it was just such a well-oiled machine. Whereas when I was in London, I was like, well, yeah, I can't get that, or I have to wait for that, or I need permission for this. And there was this uncomfortable conversation that had to be like, I'm not comfortable with doing personal tasks for you. Yeah. I can't click my fingers and make things here, and my work is suffering on the business side because I'm worrying about getting these personal things done for you. You have a housekeeper, you have a nanny, you have these people. I would really like to be able to hand over these kind of things to them. And it just didn't even register. Like, as soon as I said it, they were like, of course. But having that uncomfortable conversation up front made our working relationship so much easier. And I know it's not easy. It's uncomfortable. It's still uncomfortable thinking about that conversation. I'm like, whoa. But we actually, it helped build our rapport, and it helped us become a better team, because she was like, great, she can be open with me.
Yeah.
I've got one last question before we wrap up, and we've covered a lot of ground, but I'd really like to get a sense of what you're excited about for 2024, and some of the things that you're doing in your individual businesses that are going to help push the industry forward, because the three of you absolutely do that. So Lily, why don't we start with you? What are you excited about this year?
Yeah, loads actually. I feel like it's only 2 weeks since January, and I feel like we've already kind of we've got a lot going. But I'm really excited. We're launching our mentor program, which has gone live this month, and that is across. Yeah, we've connected people across the UK. It's a free mentor program, and we're looking to launch that again later this year, and do another intake. And then we're going to be launching a slightly different offering as well. So I can't really say much about that at the moment, but there's a lot of things to support the community that we serve. That's all we are about. Like, I think COVID for us, the pandemic was the worst thing, but the best thing, because it gave us an opportunity to understand like our why, and our why is to support and add value to the industry rather than just being another recruiter. So we're really looking to kind of like build on that this year. So yeah, really excited. And hopefully lots of strategic high level EA roles coming through as well. So
And just to say, you can really see that, Lily. You can really tell, and everything that you put out, that there is that care and attention there. So from somebody who's worked with a number of recruitment agencies where you didn't feel like that, kudos to you. Not naming any names. Candice, and you?
Well, I've got some exciting news. In that Admin Avenues is launching in the UK this year, so that's super exciting. And it's something we really wanted to do, and we there's such collaborations between the Australians and the Brits, and they often come over here and we go over there. So I think it's just really good to be able to do it that way. So we'll be able to support so many more admins on both sides of the pond. But I'm also really excited to do more collaborations with people, companies. I think 2023 was the biggest learning of collaboration over competition every time. People look at, even this, they're like, oh, you three, jump on the PPA, virtual summits and things like that, but aren't you in competition? It's not at all. We all are the biggest supporters of each other. We all talk on each other's podcasts, on each other's shows, in each other's communities. It could not be more exciting that we're all about helping each other. And whenever we see anything of each other's, we're liking it and I just love that. It gives such a good positive vibe out to everybody else to know that we work together and we work well together as women in particular. There's no competition. There's definitely some out there, but we just don't work with it. We're just you know what, you're not part of our cool kid club. We're all happy for each other. If you want to be like that, you go have your pity party over there, but we're having fun. I just say my tip is also build your supportive networks and engage in ongoing professional development, because I think that these are going to be the key to successfully navigate the challenges of 2024. So if you're not part of these communities, if you're not following the YouTube channels, if you're not following LinkedIn, get involved. This is why you go to these virtual summits, is to find out about new speakers, find about what's going on in different industries all over the world as well. We all have different perspectives. We all have, interesting ways of looking at things. It doesn't all have to be the same. Find what gels with you and go along with it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I don't know what I would do without you guys.
We love it.
Melissa, why don't you finish off?
So we've got lots of really fun stuff that are coming up in 2024. I think probably the biggest one is we started doing these tech cohorts. So we pick a topic and then people come into my group for 12 weeks and we just dive in really, really heavy for the purpose of saying, we all go to the conferences and we do a little thing, but then it's hard to implement. So this is sort of the answer to try to help people learn how to implement. So we've got lots of cohorts that are coming up. I'm back on the road now, which makes me so happy because I get to do conferences, but then I don't get a deep dive. So I am traveling a lot this year. So I'm just going to a city and saying, this is what I'm talking about all day. Come and join me. And then we go out and have dinner and have fun and do all sorts of fun stuff. So for me, it's just kind of getting back out there. And, for most people, they know that I had a lot of medical, challenges. And this is sort of me coming back with a fury and saying that's not going to take me down. So I'm really excited to get back in all of the little places here in the US. So, and maybe I may be making plans to come to the UK.
I was going to say, how far can you? We might not be able to get you to Australia, but I'm sure we can get you over the pond.
We'll
club together and get some cash.
Very exciting stuff. I would say the one thing that I would say too is that there are so many of us that have so much free content out there. So if you are somebody that is looking for stuff, I mean, all of us have stuff out there. So just keep looking and don't get bogged down. Just be curious, like, Candice said, and go find your community. There are so many, which is so exciting to me. There's so many that are out there and we're all there cheering each other on. So it's definitely out there. Keep looking.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I'm really excited for what this year is going to bring. And I think with just the three of you, but exactly as you said, Melissa, there are so many amazing trainers out there now. Just people putting things out there, asking questions on LinkedIn and having conversations. And it's making such a difference. So I'm super excited about what this year is going to bring too. But for now, I mean, I could talk to you all night. But it's, your hours are crazy. So let's call it a day. But thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Love it.
So much.
Bye, y'all.